Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Haemo-Goblin League podcast. I'm joined by new special guest Gummer.
Hello.
We're going to be reviewing the mid-portion of the season, which was our Div 1 v Div 2 games, and making some predictions for the remaining rounds of games. I would say we're like round 12 onwards, but we're kind of in round 9, 10, 11, and 12 at the moment, which is a thing. But
real life does get in the way sometimes, doesn't it?
It is very selfish when real life gets in the way of Blood Bowl. All these people with actual problems to sort out. But yeah, so we'll go through the teams. We're going through them from Division 2 up, and we'll just start by mentioning that Kate has very sadly had to drop out of the last bit of the season, which is a shame, and we hope that she's back for either the little crazy mini cup we're doing or season 6 onwards. But
here's hoping.
Did you play Kate?
I played her in round. Where is it? I'm blind. Round 4.
Ah. So a 1-0 thriller.
Yeah. Basically, lots of punching.
Yeah, that's a pretty good summary of this league with all the orcs in it.
Well, am I Nurgle just wanting to punch stuff and then going, oh, never mind then?
Yeah. For anyone who hasn't listened before, the teams in the league are Human, Orc, Wood Elf, Dwarf, Norse, Lizardman, Nurgle, Orc, Skaven, Orc. So we have 7 punching teams, 1 mid-range team, 2 fast teams.
Yeah. Just the way I like it. Just to punch things.
Mm-hmm. Although you weren't able to punch any Skaven on Friday.
No, I wasn't.
But yeah, beyond that, we have Tom Pope. It's kind of hard to predict where he's at because he's a little bit behind in his games at the moment. He's played 8, 7 points, no wins, 3 draws. So all of those points are from draws or losing bonus points. I played him in round 7, and he went all in on the kill the elves, forget there's a ball plan, and it worked well from my point. I won 3-0. Have you played Tom?
No, I haven't played Tom yet. Although looking at his team, slightly bashy and slightly fragile at the same time.
Yeah,
and
so
skinks are well known for just being punched in the head and they fall over if you can hit them.
Yeah, I think Tom reset his team. He started off as vampires, and given that someone dropped out at the start of the league and Gummer came in to replace them, we gave this match as a draw for both players. But Tom's lineup, or Tom Pope's lineup, we should be clearer, because we've got a couple of Toms in the league. 1 Croxagore, 6 Saurus, and 8 Skinks? 7 Skinks? All the Skinks. 7 Skinks.
7 Skinks.
Not much in the way of upgrades, just to level up on the Skinks.
Decent amount of injuries inflicted, though.
Yeah.
Hilariously, 3 of them have been done via Skink.
There was which round? I think it was season 4 where Tom Clark, another Tom, ran around with the Dauntless Skink that just murdered everything in sight.
That's amazing.
It was. It really was. But yeah, Tom Pope, he's theoretically still in the chance to get in the promotion race. Top in Division 1 Division 2 gets auto promoted and goes into the playoffs. 2nd and 3rd go into a extended playoff system to get the chance to get promoted against whoever ends up 4th in Division 1. So quite a way behind. Is some games behind, which does make the math a bit more complicated, but is 11 points behind 3rd place, and that's quite a lot to catch up on, especially at this time remaining in the season. But speaking of next place, so 3rd Division 2, we have Gummer.
Hooray!
Ta-da!
So, unfortunately, I'm a bit behind, where I've still got to play Tom, and then I've got to do a catch-up game with James as well. So I've got, in theory, play against Lizmen and then the Skaven. Bloody Skaven.
Yeah, so there's it's fair to say there's two potentially contrasting styles. Lizardman can obviously play quick or play bashy.
Yeah. Lizardmen, I don't mind Lizardmen too much, because if you take out the Saurus, then it's literally just skinks. Or if you just take out the skinks, then they can't handle the ball. And
Yeah.
with things like Disturbing Presence, or whatever you want to call it, it's difficult for blocking to happen. So it's just adding more dice onto the rolls.
Yeah, it's a lot of things for Lizards to overcome. But just to summarise, you played 9, or played 7 technically, but we gave you 2 draws at the start, as mentioned.
Yep.
18 points, 2 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses.
Yep.
And I think most of those losses have been against the sort of the Div 1 players, and you've done quite well against the Div 2 players. Just taking a quick summary of it.
I seem to have done all right. I did all right against Lachlan.
Yeah, you battered his Norse everywhere, didn't you?
I think it was 4 or 5 missed next games.
Brutal. Was that not against Matt, actually? Or was that both?
No, it was against Lachlan.
Okay.
Mainly because that also gave me a lot of upgrades. Seeing as all my players are virtually level 2, and I even killed one of his players and put him on the team.
Oh, who was that then?
Vale, one of his just general linemen. Get a kill on
Okay.
him late in the game, and he gets added to my team for free.
So do you want to go over your team quickly? Any particular highlights?
The only real highlight I've actually had throughout the entire season so far is mainly a Nurgle warrior intercepting on a 6. Just because.
And I think you've got probably the most annoying player in the whole league now, with the Beast of Nurgle. Can't dodge away, can't push it away because
it's great against your sort of teams. But I thought the main highlight is actually going to be the zombie elf.
Oh, the agility up one.
The agility up one.
Yeah, just so you've actually got some way to handle the ball if the pesticle goes down. Oh, you got 2 pesticles now, but
2 pesticle now. But it's nice being able to actually do something with the ball, whereas normally you roll and for some reason I just cannot pick up the ball.
It has been quite funny that both games we've played, once in real life in a different league, and once in the Wood Elf versus game on here, you just haven't been able to pick up the ball either time. Or if you have, I've had 3 players right next to you ready to punch you back off the ball.
Pretty much. Very disheartening, but that is the life of playing zombies.
So next up we have James, who's done pretty well the last few weeks. Played 9, 21 points, 3 wins, 4 draws, 2 losses. Coming off back-to-back wins against Thomas and me. We've got to play Mike next, which is going to be a pretty interesting clash of styles. And the winner of that would go top of Division 2 for the moment. But yeah, it's been interesting to see James because he didn't start off that great. I had quite a rocky start.
Well, I can see that he's had 5 dead players.
Yeah, he is playing Skaven. So,
yeah, it should be necessary. Should expect it, but 5? Wow.
Yeah, thankfully 4 of them have been linemen.
Yeah,
the one
helps.
The one throw has been pretty good.
But yeah, it looks like a decent sort of team so far.
I think what's also most impressive is that the 2 back-to-back wins against Thomas and me have been. He's the only person to have beaten both of us. And given we're top of the things, that's quite a nice record to have.
Yeah, pretty good.
So it'll be interesting to see if James keeps that up for the last bit of the season.
I will look forward to punching his rats.
It's interesting as well because James was Skaven last season and went the 4 Gusser runner route to start with.
Yep.
And this season he went for the Rat Ogre, and it's clearly putting in some work because he's got 6 injuries inflicted on it. It's his highest or second highest SB player with Juggernaut and Break Tackle, just so it can run around and cause havoc wherever it wants.
Yeah.
It is just interesting to see how the different play styles adapt each season.
And the absolutely terrifying +1 move sprint Gutter Runner
Oh yeah,
with
hate
5 touchdowns.
all of which I imagine were one turn, but well, I
Very
imagine
likely, yeah.
imagine any future touchdowns were from him with one turn. That is just the most horrendous thing to defend against ever.
It's got the ball, it's on the line, it scored.
Yeah.
That's why you have to have things like Tentacle or Tackle or diving tackles, things like that. You need to be able to
I'm
like,
not sure we
into these
need
sort
any
of
tackle
matchups,
this
but
season, and the fact that I'm playing elves has nothing to do with that statement.
there's plenty of tackle. It's just all on one team.
Yes. But finally running out Div 2, we have Mike, currently top of the division, played 9, 23 points, 4 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses. Had probably the best sort of rounds 1 to 5, didn't have the best rounds 6 to 9. I think James and Gummer have caught him up a little bit. He had a bit of a lead going into that. And it is really tight in that thing. He does have one of the players of the league so far. He's got a strength 5 orc, or strength 5 black orc, which at that point is just
punchy.
it's a big
it's a
guy with no
reliable troll.
downside. Yeah. When he's got a troll as well, that's a hell of a front line to get through. Especially sprinkling in a bit of grab and tackle and block in the other players.
Yeah, plenty of injuries suffered though. So looking at it,
inflicted.
injuries suffered. If you actually look at his team.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I see what you mean now.
He's suffered 4 different injuries. Admittedly, 2 of them don't really matter because they're just no lasting damage. But a troll with -1 agility.
Oh no!
No
My
one
troll can't pick
cares.
up the ball anymore.
Oh no, my troll is going to be agility 0. Oh no.
That doesn't affect when the troll's throwing, does it? I don't think
No,
it
it's done by
does.
strength.
Yeah. I was thinking about throwing goblins if that had any impact, but
He does have a goblin
he does have a goblin.
for that cheeky play.
I loved that play when Underworlds. I still think probably my favourite highlight of any season I've done is beating Thomas's Lizardman with a round the turn 16 thrown goblin to win it.
Yeah.
I was overjoyed at that moment, but he got his revenge later. He beat me in the semi-final with the same team, but we can move on from that. So yeah, that's Division 2. 5 points separate third from first, which is potentially one big win. Given you're our Division 2 expert on the show today, how are you feeling it so far?
It's hard to say really because Mike's team's got quite a lot of bashing on it, and everyone else in the Division 2, we've all got a lot of bash, but at the same time, Orcs are very, very good at doing it. And he's got such a decent points lead already. It is a bit difficult trying to catch up to that, especially when a lot of the teams don't actually have a lot of good running abilities.
No, it's only really James Skaven realistically in the mix to that have that sort of running speed. There hasn't been any crazy orcs that have double sped up or anything like that.
No, nothing like that.
But yeah, the James, Mike, Gummer, James, sort of 3 games are going to be really interesting to watch because those are going to be the big ones that decide who gets the automatic playoff spot and a chance to get into the quarterfinals.
Indeed.
So moving to Division 1.
Yep.
At bottom, we have Matt's human teams. Played 10, 19 points, 3 wins, 2 draws, 5 losses. It's been a pretty respectable effort from Matt. He did reasonably well in the round of 6 to 9 stages, picking up a win over James and a draw against Kate, before going down to Mike and drawing against you at the end of that sort of little round. I think he was fourth before this little sort of intermediate step happened. That's partly due to others in the thing doing well. Have you also played Matt in round 9? Do you want to summarize that one for us?
It's going a little while back, so I'll have to try and remember it. But I believe it was a very cagey sort of game. So I believe a lot of it was me trying to like defend the ball when I had it, or just trying to block him from moving his team too much. Because of my Nurgle team's abilities to try and shut down passing, it sort of limits some of his options,
Yeah,
which has helped quite a lot.
I think for Matt to come out with that with the draw is quite a respectable effort. I think that's quite a good matchup for Nurgle. But Matt's still in the fight, which considering he's humans is quite impressive, and that he's basically outbashed by everyone else in the league. And you can see that when you look at the upgrades he's taken, they are, without exception, all related to help him punch better. So guard, stand firm, block, dauntless, strength up. Oh, 1 accurate and block.
Yeah, but accurate on a thrower is fairly standard, isn't it?
Oh yes. But a strength 4 thrower, that's kind of interesting.
Aren't throwers strength 2 normally?
I think they're 3 normally, and then it's the catches which are 2. But I could be wrong.
Oh, that's it.
But yeah, I think a very respectable effort from Matt so far. Given that we are, as we said, in a really punchy league, and he's trying to wrestle with the other teams at essentially a strength disadvantage in just about every game.
Indeed. He's also scored 11 touchdowns overall, which is higher than James's Skaven in Division 2. So even though he's bottom of Division 1, he's still deserving of that spot due to the fact that he has scored that many touchdowns, as well as doing a decent winning record, I believe.
I think that's the thing.
He's got 3 wins, 2 losses. 3 wins, 2 draws, 5 losses. So he's in a fairly decent place. Especially with a team that isn't very good at handling the ball and isn't very good at like bashing. It's okay at doing them, but not the best, which is kind of a difficulty with Blood Bowl, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like Matt's, for every season since season 1, he's always been in the playoff mix, and he's often been leading the league. And the fact that he's humans, and I think was a very bad meta to be a human. It's quite impressive that he's still in the fight. He's falling a little bit behind, but he's got a couple of big head-to-heads, which if he wins, will take him perhaps out of that relegation and still potentially in that sort of 3rd playoff spot. So moving on from Matt to our current 4th place, which is Lachlan. Although it should be said he's only a point behind David, who's in 3rd with a game in hand. So Lachlan is played 10, 23 points, 4 wins, 2 draws, 4 losses. So a nice 50-50 split. Just come off the back of what's our highest scoring game so far, which was a 4-2 game between me and him. Had a pretty poor round 6 to 9, albeit there's still 1 game left to play. He was in a pretty good spot when it was in round 5, which is all the Div 1 v Div 1 games, and 6 to 9 was the Div 1 v Div 2 games. Which is interesting. I think Lachlan still struggles to, a bit like Matt, So Lachlan's playing Norse, and I think he's still struggling to overcome that strength disadvantage against all these sort of big orc teams, big Nurgle teams.
Yeah. It's a weird one where with Norse and human, they're both essentially just human teams. And the later the league sort of goes, the more skills and things are there. So early game, you've got skills to dissuade the strength differences. Whereas late game, then the other bashier teams tend to start getting skills and things, so it makes it much harder to overcome that strength difference.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting stat for every league we've done, with the exception of the first, and the first was kind of very crazy and wasn't really almost not really a proper season. It's always been the bashiest team that's won. So it was Chaos Dwarfs, Lizardmen, and Orcs. And I think that point you made absolutely relates to that the later the season gets, the bashier teams keep getting bashier and more muscly, and just adding block to all those strength 4 players to increase their reliability. Whereas the dodgy teams haven't been able to keep up in that sort of arms race. There's also an interesting thing. Lachlan's been keeping track of his KOs inflicted and suffered. And despite being a bashy team, he's exactly even on both, which is a probably quite good stat for Norse, considering how low their armor is. But does show the sort of troubles that when he's a bashy team that's not necessarily getting a numbers advantage over the opposition.
No, because as soon as you start losing players, then you start losing the ability to make up that difference in strength.
Bit
of a weird one.
But next, currently in third, played 11, 24 points, 5 wins, no draws at all, and 6 losses. We have David, who I think out of everyone has had the best round 6 to 9, winning all of his games, mostly winning them quite comfortably. Didn't concede a single touchdown against him in that time, actually. So winning 2-0, 2-0, 3-0, 2-0, which is a hell of a thing. And I don't think, coincidentally, David is dwarfs, and in that time frame, he has added a death roller to his team.
Oh yes, that thing.
So I was gonna say I haven't played against David's death roller. I technically played against David's death roller. So I'll be very quick in my little story. But I played David round 10. He went to punch me with his death roller. It went both down, and he got stunned. I ran past him as my elves, picked up the ball, scored. The death roller went off. Hooray!
Hooray! It's dealt with straight away.
Mm-hmm.
So when I played David, that damn thing went on a tear and just ran over all my guys. And I believe in that game I couldn't pick up the ball again. But the best bit about that entire game is I believe he scores, his death roller gets sent off, and then the very next kickoff result was everyone gets a free bribe.
So just too late.
Just too late.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if David's got enough money saved up to. No, he's got basically no money at all to get the stadium upgrade, because that would be a big change up.
Only if you're playing on that stadium, though, isn't it?
Yeah, so he'd have to be at home and have essentially another 180k in his treasury to get it. So he's running out of time to add it in, especially as he's only got he's got 2 home games left, but I don't think he's going to have enough.
Probably not worth the investment at that point, though, is it? You have to do it really early or plan for it really early.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you have a Goblin team, you want to have cheap
bribes. Yeah, absolutely.
But with the death roller, probably not. It's nice,
especially in
you need it.
Yeah, especially in our division. If there were lots of elves and things where you needed that extra drive with it, then it makes a lot of sense. But given the first drive against orcs is typically going to take a long time, or they've got to take more risks, then it's less of a priority than, say, having an extra reroll or something else.
Indeed.
But yeah, David continuing his his trend of always picking sort of interesting lineups and teams. It's probably worth pointing out that Matt, David, and Lachlan are very close together. There then is quite a bit of a gap between those three, who are essentially all playing off for the last playoff spot and avoiding auto relegation / potentially being in the potential relegation spot. So we go from David with 24 points. We jump all the way up to Thomas with 37 points. So played 11, won 9, no draws at all again, 2 losses. And even amongst the Orc teams, one of the most brutal of them. So, yeah. Troll, 4 Black Orcs, 4 Blitzes, a couple of linemen. Here is all the
that's
punch.
next week's game, that is.
Well, for you.
Yes, it is. But yeah, that is a very, very punchy team.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier there's like a sort of escalation in punching this whole thing that's been going on for most of the teams. And this is pretty much the logical extreme of that.
Where everything has guard or mighty blow. Or block.
Yeah.
Or be sold.
Yeah. There is one with dodge and sure hands so there's one person to pick up the ball.
Yeah, but that's also a blodge, so
yeah. And then everyone else is absolutely dedicated to punching. If you ever want a team that's going straight for that 2-1 grind plan, this is it. And it's been utterly successful. And it's interesting that the two games Thomas has, not even just the 2 games he's lost, the 2 games he's not won have been against Skaven / Wood Elves, who just don't enter into that game plan at all.
They just go and bounce away because
nope.
Not having any of that.
Yeah, I think we've covered my game on versus Thomas on one of the other episodes. How was your game against him?
If I remember rightly, very brutal. Because
yeah, it was all the way back in round 3, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was my first game in the league.
Yeah, that was kind of a harsh introduction.
It wasn't actually that brutal looking at it because it was a 1-0. So he scored once and that's it. So
yeah,
essentially he stopped me from scoring to make it a draw, from what I remember. But I just couldn't quite stop him from scoring in his turn.
Yeah, I think from memory I watched a bit of that, and Thomas ground you down pretty well in the first half, and you ground him down pretty well in the second half, but you didn't quite have enough to get the score.
No.
And he went loose a bit near the end, but yeah, Thomas continuing his sort of his continuing on from his season 3 reputation of just absolutely enjoying beating the shit out of everyone.
What's
And
interesting though is if you look at the scoring on a lot of those games, he has scored 2 in most games.
yeah,
he scores a lot.
He scores a lot. We brought in the 3-try bonus point rule this season, and it's interesting seeing Thomas get very close to that a number of times. I'm not actually sure if he's managed it yet. Taking a quick glance at things.
Not yet.
Yeah, just doing the maths. 1 losing bonus point and everything else points from a win. Which is interesting. I thought he had the chance to do it against Lachlan. He scored against the play and had a chance to potentially set up a 2-turn touchdown quite early. Give himself 6 turns for the bonus, but either something he's not felt comfortable doing with the time, or something that hasn't presented itself as an opportunity. Given Orcs are a tail on the slow side, but still, yeah, scoring very consistently, but hasn't had that sort of big blowout game for Orcs yet, I guess. And finally, we have me with Elves, or Wood Elves. played 11, 44 points, 9 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Loss was to James in round 9, which I was expecting that to be like, everyone scores all the time. And it didn't work out for me.
I'm guessing he got in your face and just made you roll dice.
Essentially, there was quite a scrap for the ball in the first half. I was kicking off to him, and there was a lot of fight in the backfield. Sadly, for me, the ball sort of bounced James's way, and he ended up scoring, and I lost quite a few of my players in the scrap. Second half, I tried to go for a sort of aggressive touchdown. It didn't work. The ball went loose, and James ran away to score. So, yeah, James making a sort of a very messy game with the ball, and whenever it broke out, James was able to use his gutter runners to great effect and just hair down the pitch at a speed even the Wood Elves couldn't catch.
Well, what is interesting though is looking at your team, you are getting, well, obviously you're winning, but you've got a lot of points with basically a team that was murdered very early on.
Yeah, I played Lackland in round 2. It took me till round 7 to get back up to 11 players on my team after the brutality that Lackland inflicted on me.
Yep.
I've just played Lackland, and I've saved, and I had to spend all of the treasure I'd built up since then to get my team to remain at 11 players. So I've lost 6 players this season so far. Thankfully, all linemen. And 4 of those have been in my 2 games versus Lackland, as he's kicked the shit out of me. And then 1 to Thomas and 1 to Matt as well. As when the game starts slowing up, the casualties rack up very quickly on my side.
All it takes is one failed dodge roll with a reroll, and your team is in trouble.
Oh yeah, it is. They can pull off some of the just stupidest stuff, but there's always that thing that even if you've got the reroll, it's just 1 dice failing you. And if that happens at the start of the turn, things can go very wrong for Wood Elves very quickly. Albeit they have the chance to do some crazy stuff like the 4-2 game against Lackland. Like the 2 of the tries I scored were like, cool, dodge into tackle zone, offload into tackle zone, dodge out of tackle zone, dodge into tackle zone, dodge out of tackle zone, score.
Sometimes there's just nothing you can do about that apart from just hope that the dice fail.
Yeah. From my point of view, I was delighted. I think Lackland took it very well. But yeah, that's the current positions. So to over summarize, me and Thomas playing it out for top spot. Technically possible for David. I think technically possible only for Lackland to theoretically come second, but there's a hell of a gap between second and third. Realistically, it is me and Thomas fighting out for 1 and 2, and then David, Lackland, Matt fighting out for 3, 4, 5 with no clear indication yet of who's going to win that. Then we've got a 3-way fight for first, second, third in Division 2 with Tom Pope a little behind, and Kate's sadly out of it. So, should we make some predictions?
Well, we can try.
So, round 9, finishing off there, we have Lackland versus Tom Pope, which is hopefully being played today. So, Norse versus Lisbon. I put my money on Lackland winning that, probably 2-0, maybe even 3-0.
I don't know. I'd probably say it would be 1-0 to Lackland.
Okay. I just think
he's got enough of the skills in place to go against a team that hasn't really developed very well at the moment, because it's not far off from being a fresh team. So he's got lots of blocking things. So it's easy for him to do 1 dice blocks or try and manage trying to just knock out his skinks early. And as soon as the skinks are down or reduce the amount that they've got, they just can't score.
Yeah.
So he can sort of turn it into a grind fest if he can.
Yeah, I think Lackland, with the skills he's got, has a a physical edge over most of Tom's players, and if the Norse get into the skinks, they will go down horrendously quickly.
Yes.
So yeah, money quite heavily on Lachlan. Don't have to predict on your own games, Gummer. But if we go to round 10, we do have Gummer versus Tom Pope again. I would put you as favourite for that. We kind of mentioned it a bit earlier. The spawn can be a nightmare for Lizardman to play around, because if that gets near to a skink, then
Well, if there's too many skinks nearby each other, then you just run the beast into them, and they're stuck there.
Yeah, because I think they need a 5, possibly even a 6 to get away, and that's before the dodge roll.
I think so, yeah. And then it's also got tentacles to make the dodge roll even harder.
Yeah, it's not fun. And as we were saying, if you can stop those Lizardmen scoring threats from the skinks, they don't have many places to go. And it's going to be hard for the Saurus to get enough of an edge over the Nurgle Warriors to counteract that, if it's even possible at all.
Well, with Nurgle Warriors, all it takes is you roll a 1 for the Disgusting Presence or Disgusting Appearance, whichever is. That's it. There's so many words on these names, aren't there?
Disgustingly foul appearance of vitality.
Yes, exactly. All it takes is like you line up the block and you roll a 1, and you've already used a reroll, and then you don't block. Action wasted. That's all it takes for like the block fights to swing my way.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I put that as probably just 1-0, given Nurgle are quite slow. But the potential for 2-0 as well. That one in your favour. Finally, rounding out round 10, we have James's Skaven versus Mike's Orcs. Complete contrast of styles. This was 1-1 the first time they played. I think I'd predict probably a pretty similar result. I think Mike's not going to be able to stop James's scoring, and I don't think James is going to be able to stop Mike's scoring, albeit in a much slower, more brutal fashion. I think if this is going to go one way, then I think if Mike goes first and can just obliterate enough Skaven in the first half, then he might win it 1-0, 2-1.
I
otherwise,
think it's going to come down to the who goes first.
Mm-hmm.
If the Orcs get a chance to go first, they're going to basically protect the board as much as they can and just beat up as many Skaven as they can to try and whittle their numbers down for later rounds to make it much easier to try and defend and score.
Yeah.
So maybe a 1-1 draw if the Orcs go first and can stall out long enough to cause some damage. If not, it'll probably be 2-1 to the Skaven.
Fair enough. Round 11, we have Tom Pope Lizardman versus Matt's Humans. Technically, this was 3-1 to Matt last time we played, although Tom Pope was playing Vampires back then, so it's hard to take too much from that. I think given Matt has quite a bit more, has more experience as a Blood Bowl player and more experience on his human team, I'd put him as favourite for that one. Mostly as well to put him as favourite because last time we did this, no one predicted Matt as favourite to win any of the games he was due to play, so it's nice to break that. But yeah, I put Matt's Humans to win that one 1-0, 2-0.
I think similar thing before, where again it's a very developed team versus an underdeveloped team. Humans have a lot of the skills behind them still. So let's have a look at the team.
Yeah, Matt has quite a bit of guard to help him in that.
Quite a lot of guard, so it's difficult for the Saurus to do blocks. He's got 4 blitzers, a catcher with block, 2 catchers with block. So he's essentially got 6 of his 11 members of the team with block against Saurus who don't have anything like that natively.
Yeah.
So that makes the Lizmen struggle quite a lot.
And Matt does have enough speed with his catches to keep up with the Skinks if they try and play a different game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put put Matt as favourite for that one.
Probably 2-0.
Mhm.
If he's able to like smash his skink out of the way, get the ball, be able to score that way.
So next up, we have one of the big games in Division 2. We have James versus Gummer, so Skaven versus Nurgle. You could probably pretty much copy paste my response to the Mike James game for this. I think if Nurgle go first, it puts them in a really great spot. Otherwise, I think it's probably 1-1 because I think Skaven struggled to.
It's all down to whether or not I can protect the ball properly and how well I utilise the beast.
Mhm.
As if I get him near a couple of gutter runners, they're kind of stuck there for the game.
And gutter runners are so important for that Skaven plan.
If you lock down one gutter runner and knock another one out, they're very limited. 2 gutter runners are good, but it's a lot easier to check off 2 gutter runners than it is 4.
Mhm.
Whereas the rest of it, I can just knock it over, basically. Easiest way of dealing with Skaven, just punch them. Except the gutter runners.
So I'm going to go for 1-1 draw on that.
I'd probably agree.
Then we have Mike versus Kate, which we know is going to be a 3-0 win by a forfeit for Mike.
Yep.
So round 12, we have myself versus Matt. The round 12 hasn't started yet. You may have noticed that rounds 9 to 11 we only had a couple of games left.
Yep.
But we have Wood Elves versus Humans. What do you think, Gummer?
So, looking at previous games, as soon as I find it, because I'm blind.
Last time
So,
this was 2-0 to me.
Yeah, in round 3. But now both teams are a lot more developed. But because the Humans are now spec'd more into bashing, they haven't got much ways to deal with elf bullshit.
Mhm.
So I think it's going to be another 2-0 to
Fair.
you.
Um,
Purely because of the lack of skills to help deal with some of the elves.
that is I'd probably say that I go in as favourite. That is a good player, and our game in round 3 was very, very close up until Matt got a bit foul happy and got one of his players sent off, which ended up being rather big. Next up, we have Lachlan's Norse versus David's Dwarfs in the block matchup. Last time this was 2-0 to Lachlan, but last time there wasn't a death roller on the team.
No, and I think the death roller is going to play a major part in that. If the dwarfs do what they want to do, which is stall the game out as long as they can to cause damage, then in theory, the dwarves will have a bit of an edge out where the death roller can do a lot of damage.
It's interesting because it does. Of all the bashy teams, apart from Lisbon, Norse do have the best speed out of the remaining bashy teams. So they do have that option to try and score quickly and take the death roller out of play. It is a real task because if that death roller starts running around, mighty blowing all those armor 7 Norse, then it could win the game in the first half. So yeah, really tough one to call. I'm gonna back Lachlan.
I would back Lachlan as well, but I think it might be a 1-0.
Yeah, and this is certainly one that I could see. Like, if David has a really good first half, he could end up with a real obliteration of Lachlan. But yeah.
Well, with the high armor of the dwarfs, it's very difficult to actually remove them from the game in total.
Lachlan does have a mighty blow claw Yeti, so he can start taking out the dwarfs, but yeah, not to the same extent.
True, but if you stay away from it, then it doesn't do anything. You're wasting your blitz on, well, not wasting, but you're using your blitz on that rather than something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're trying to kill players rather than potentially target the ball or whatever.
Yeah.
We have Thomas. It's Orcs versus Gummer. Much more closely matched styles. I think Orcs have the edge in the punching more.
They do, because there is a lot of guard there. I don't have a lot of it myself.
Yeah, so I think Thomas goes into this as favourite in a sort of probably a 1-0 type thing.
Probably, yeah, because I've only recently got my Noble Warriors who are Strength 4 to be able to have new skills. Hilariously enough, one of them is Dodge. But yeah, I don't have a lot of strength to try and stop him from bashing me, but I do have some Fend in order to try and prevent some of it.
I think that's the thing. That's like there is, as with all these things, there's certainly a world where Nurgle can win, but it's an uphill struggle for them, especially given that the Orcs are so good at taking a punch that it doesn't matter too much in the who goes first with that one. I think.
Indeed, but considering my first game against him was 1-0, and he scored 2 in most of his other games, it might be a similar situation again, where it might be a 1-0 to Thomas. Maybe to me, but that's all just down to the dice, though, isn't it?
Finally, to finish off 12, we have Mike's Orcs versus Tom Pope's Lizards. I think I would back Mike to beat up the Saurus and leave the Skinks vulnerable. So I'd put Mike as probably 2-0 to win that, which is what actually he did in round 3 last time these two played.
Yeah, I can see that happening as well. When you've got things like Grab, you can easily just pick up a skink and put it in the middle of your team and then just beat it senseless. As well as having just the advantage in the block wars.
Yeah. It's one of the things where if the sort of SPP was more equal, I could certainly see Lizardmen winning, but because the Lizards are really far behind in terms of development compared to everyone else, it makes life really tough for them.
If the Lizards suddenly had block on most of their Saurus, or stand firm, or guard, things like that, things that can help them defend against being hit, then it's a much more even matchup. But without those skills to drop the difference, it's not easy. Although, if we have a quick look at the TVs,
I don't think it's even that different. It might even 1470 for the Orcs.
1330.
1330. Okay.
Technically, if you
so
removed a skink, you would be able to get some decent inducements.
Yeah, so you could get a wizard and or potentially a star player. I forget which the Lizardmen have access to, but
yeah, something like that might possibly be a bit more worthwhile than a 7th skink.
Probably.
Options to do that before the game, obviously, but we shall see what happens.
Round 13, we have David versus Matt. Another one of the big important matches for the sort of head-to-head standings.
Yeah.
Dwarfs versus humans.
I kind of want to give that to the humans.
I was going dwarfs on that. The humans, from the human point of view, they do have the ability to score quick with thrower plus catcher, and take the death roll out of it. I kind of feel that probably pressures them into trying to play too quick at the start, and the dwarves are great at stopping that. Last time we played, it was 1-0 to Matt. I'm going to predict 1-0 to... Actually, Matt almost never doesn't score. I'm going to go 1-1, actually. I'm going to put that as a draw.
Yeah, sounds reasonable. If the human team scores early and is able to get through and be able to score, then I think that'll be probably a 2-1 victory for the humans. He's not going to knock down many of the dwarfs.
No.
But if he removes that death roller, then he reduces the amount of damage he's going to take in return quite significantly. Because that is horrible.
It is. It is hard to fight on that line of scrimmage when you just have that strength 7 monster in the middle of it.
Although that's where you have things like a wizard and just go zap. No.
So next up we have Thomas versus Lachlan. Again, one of the big sort of heavyweight in terms of the play style teams. So Lachlan's Norse versus Thomas's Orcs.
I think Thomas has got that one purely because that's a very strong Orc Bashy team, and that's what the Norse want to do.
Yeah,
They
I
just
think,
can't catch up on like the strength 4s and strength 5s.
yeah, I think, yeah, I agree with what you said there, basically completely. 1-0, 2-1 to Thomas.
If Thomas does a lot of damage, then it's probably going to be a 2-0.
Yeah,
If
that
not, it'll be
could be
1-0.
a 2-0 if Thomas gets the first blow in, because
Yeah.
Norse do not like taking the first blow, especially with the potential of just chucking a bunch of mighty blow people on the line against them.
Yep.
We then have Mike versus myself. This was a 1-1 draw last time we played. I'm tempted to predict the same again. Mike's been very impressive this season. Orcs have a lot of muscle. It is
True, but when did you play him? You played him
round 4.
4?
Mhm.
Back when you had a very gimped team.
That
So-
is true. I don't actually think that mattered too much because he just killed the replacements I had, the inducement players I had for that one. Or knocked them
True,
out.
but it makes it easier for you because you've got things that have leveled up as well. So it's easier for you to dodge out of his tackle zones and basically just ignore him.
That is
and
fair.
just play your own game. And with Orcs, they're not very great at doing intercepts, are they? So if you get like a decent line, then you've got very easy ways to score.
That is fair. Tom only has he does have kick, which is actually quite valuable in the matchup, and one person tackle. But yeah, everything else is geared off to muscling this shit over people, which is less of a concern for elves than it is for a lot of the other teams in this league.
Indeed. So honestly, I'm going to say it's going to be a big one for you, where you're going to go 3-1.
Oh wow, I would not object if that is the case. And to round out round 13, we have James versus Tom Popes. That's Skaven versus Lizardman. I would back James to win that. Not dissimilar to what we've been saying, the Saurus aren't particularly developed. They may be by this stage, which could drastically alter things, but given how good given that the Skaven have enough speed to get into the Skinks, I think that puts them at quite a strong advantage.
Well, let's have a quick look at the Skaven real quick. So he's got only one block on the gutter runners, and then the really fast one. So he can very easily like nip around the corners, and with the same strength as each other, it's very easy for a gutter runner to like you get 2 gutter runners in, very easy. Then one of them can just do a 2 dice block onto a skink, and especially when one of the gutter runners has block itself already, it's very easy to knock a skink out.
Yeah.
Well, I say easy; it's
Relatively.
good odds.
So yeah, I can see that going 2-0, 3-1 to James.
Yeah, I can see that. Probably 2-1, if anything.
Feels like 2-1, but if Skaven do get on a roll, they can just be nightmarish to stop.
Yeah, that's true.
And
As I
so
found out Friday.
So round 14, last round of the season. Hopefully try and get all of those games on at the same time, or as many of them as we can. Reminds me I need to send out a date for that to see what people can do. So we have Lachlan versus Matt. Could be the decider for sort of third place there, straight head to head.
Yeah.
Norse
I quite
versus
like
humans.
that.
Yeah, so far
It looks like a fairly even matchup, as Lachlan scored more so far than Matt has.
mm,
But at the same time, they're not far away from points either.
no. Last time they played, it was 3-1 to Lachlan. Lachlan did score the most technically impressive touchdown I've seen this season, where he had a double frenzy push to free up his person, which was it was just beautiful, to be honest, to watch. Which was it was a really big moment. It was the these MacLeod, I think it was 1-1 going into half time, and did that to pull off a pretty crazy score to go 2-1 up. I would say Norse are favoured. Humans have a
they've got
very,
more
very minor speed advantage with the captures, but yeah, so much block on MacLeod's team, I think, is a.
So the humans have slightly more armor, but there's just more tricks available in the Norse. So I think, yeah, you're right. I think the Norse will have a bit of an edge. So probably a 2-1.
Yep, that's what I was thinking. 1-0, 2-1. Myself versus Thomas of Wood Elves versus Orcs. To be honest, there's always been a joke going around that the last game before the playoffs you might want to concede. If there is ever a chance to do that, I would love to concede this game and not play it and have a team for the playoffs. Don't want to play Orcs just before the playoffs.
Just so you don't have your team murdered.
Yes.
Again, it just sort of comes down to whether or not at that point does Thomas have enough SPP to upgrade some of his guys to be able to deal with your guys just dodging out constantly.
It was when we played in round 5. It's funny because if you look at the score, it was 3-1 to me. But the first 3 punches Thomas did, he seriously injured players. So all I did for the half was just try and play the game at 100 million miles an hour and do all the dodges. And it's one of those things where all the dice went in my favour. And then that style of game is one of those ones where it could be 3-0 to either player when that happens. Where Orcs just remove the Wood Elf as a team. So yeah, that's another one of those matchups that I think is going to be really swingy one way or the other.
Yeah. It's probably going to be 2-0 to whoever gets the most damage in.
And if it's a damage thing, it's
damage or dodge away. Hopefully damage.
Then have our 1 Division 2 versus 1 game that round, which is David versus James. Both of them potentially in the mix for any of the David in the mix for the top for 3, 4, 5, James in the mix for 1, 2, 3. And that's a tough one to score.
I actually think the dwarfs have a bit of an edge out on that one.
The tackle really does help against the gutter runners, but they're still dodging on a 2-up.
True, but if they've specced into other things to try and help with that,
that's
all it takes is forcing them to make those dice rolls quite often.
I think the speed advantage is so heavily on James's side. I'm going to predict him to win. I'm going to go 2-1 to James.
I can see that as well, but it might not be. It might be like a 1-0.
Yes, and it was 2-0 to David actually last time these two played.
Essentially, the regular Skaven can't really deal with dwarfs very easily.
No, dwarves will get a numbers advantage at some point in the match. It's just a question of when.
It's just whether or not he can deal with. Although actually, what will be the biggest thing in that entire game will be when he puts the Death Roller in.
That's a good point, because if Skaven go
at
first turn, you might want to hold it back, and then for Skaven might want to take their time a bit more and could. Yeah, it's always interesting. I think when you get these secret weapons on the pitch, because you do get a different meta game within the game. It happened a lot when Laxton was Goblins back in season 2, when it's like, okay, does he actually want to score at the end of the half? Because all of his players have an extra drive that they can't participate in.
Difficult thing to manage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting one. But yeah, I'm going to put James down as 2-1.
I'll probably do the same.
And then finally, we have what could be the decider for first place in Division 2. We have Mike versus Gummer. We have another Orc versus Nurgle game.
My last 3 games of the league is Orcs.
Ouch. I mean, there is a buy in there, to be fair.
Yeah, true. But still, like 3 Orc teams.
Yeah, all the punch. Well, I've got human Orc, so it's slightly better.
Yeah. So looking at Mike's team, it's a strong team, but at the same time, it's not that heavy on skills.
It is going to be a titanic tussle back on that line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
I think my honest answer for whoever wins is probably whoever gets first turn.
Possibly, yeah.
Just that first chance to put a punch. It was 2-0 to Mike the first time they played. I'm gonna go, I guess 1-0 to whoever gets first turn. So essentially predicting who do I think is getting first turn on a 50-50. Gummer, you're going to win 1-0.
Hooray!
You're going to win the coin toss.
Be a first.
Um,
But that's about it for predictions, isn't it?
yeah. So there's. Yeah, so I guess on league predictions, we could do the math and work out where we think people are going, but me and Thomas won a first or second. Who do you think is going to get the third spot in Division 1?
Looking at it, I kind of want to say Lachlan.
Yeah, I think Lachlan is in the best spot for that.
So at the moment he's in fourth, but that's because he's one game down overall compared to Thomas, you, and David.
And I think I'd back I'd back Lachlan to beat Tom and possibly even pick up a bonus point, so that would give him quite a nice lead. And I was, I think I was backing. I think I backed Lachlan to beat David as well in that head-to-head.
Yeah.
So I think if Lachlan does that, then it's almost impossible to David catching him, and Matt has to do very well to catch him. So yeah, I think Lachlan third. Oh, I want to say Matt fourth. I'm going to say Matt fourth and David to come last, but it's. I just feel Matt will find a way to avoid the auto relegation somehow. He'll pick up a win over somewhere where he shouldn't.
He's fifth at the moment, and he's played 10 games, whereas David is only a few points ahead of him.
Yeah, so he's 5 points ahead.
One game extra. And even then, the touchdown difference is there's 2 difference for the touchdowns. So if Matt wins by 2, then he's pretty much taken over David straight away. Because he's getting same sort of touchdowns, which gives him more points. So that should put him basically just drop David straight down into 4th place or 5th place, depending on what happens in Lachlan as well.
Yeah. Division 2, we know Kate's going to end up as bottom, and she's dropped out. I'd be surprised if you think Tom Pope's able to catch up to fourth, especially as we were predicting him to lose, I think, every game. And then we have played the same amount of games, but you are 5 points behind Matt and 3 points behind James, who is 2 points behind Mike. So those head-to-heads become crucial. I think I'm going to predict Mike to stay at first. He's been very impressive this season, so I think he's gonna edge it, but it's going to be really tight. I'm not sure who's going to go second. Can't remember what I predicted for you versus James. I think I predicted you to win that, so I think I'll put you as second and James as third. But that is going to be a couple of points either way to finish it off.
Yeah, it's going to be a very sort of close set of games, isn't it?
But what's been quite good is theoretically in each of the last 3 seasons, technically speaking, all of the last game that was played in the round, and most people were watching this because all the games were at the same time, the last turn could and has decided the final table. So if we can keep that going, keep the drama right till the end.
Well, it's all to play for, apart from you have got a bit of an insurmountable lead, apart from maybe from Thomas.
Yeah, so I was doing the maths, and I can't not be in the top 2. because if Lachlan wins every game, he ends up on 43 with every possible bonus point, and I'm on 44, so I can't not
And
being that top two.
you get points for losing as well, like 1 point or something, or is it?
1 point if you lose and you're within 1 touchdown.
Okay.
So winner of me versus Thomas in round 14 probably has a Thomas has a very realistic chance of overtaking me still, but I can't not be in that first or second. Lachlan could theoretically take Thomas out from second, but he'd have to go on the most crazy run, and Thomas would have to basically not get another point. So technically possible, but I would I would very much back Tom with a 14-point lead to keep that gap. And then we're just into our slightly convoluted playoff system. So playoff predictions, and we're going to get these all horribly wrong because we're going to be trying to predict people who might not even be in the playoffs. But to explain the system, what happens is first place second in a eliminator match. The winner goes straight to the final. The loser of that goes to the semi-final.
Yep.
Otherwise, we have the person who finished first in Division 2 plays the person who finished first in Division 3. The winner of that match then plays in the semi-final against the loser of the eliminator match, the 1v2. And the winner of that then goes into the final. If you're wondering why it's so complicated, we've copied the model used by the IPL cricket. And the aim is to try and promote the people who ended up with the best league position gets essentially a chance to lose one game at the start, but still a chance to win overall.
Okay.
So, first versus second in Division 1 in the eliminator match, we're pretty certain is going to be myself versus Thomas. You can predict this one.
Again, I think it'll be down to you winning it, purely based on the lack of anti-elf tech that the orcs have put into it. Because all it takes is for you to just dodge out, and then he's got one block action for most of his turns to do anything.
Fair enough. So we have the quarterfinal match then, which would be third, which I think we were agreeing was going to be Lachlan, versus first in Division 2, which we think is going to be very close, but we were just edging towards Mike.
Yep.
That is going to be a hell of a game.
I think that would be down to Mike there. Again, it's just Norse trying to overcome the difference of orcs.
So when they played in round 7, and that was a 0-0 game. I think it's the only 0-0 game we've had. Both sides were really close to scoring. I have a feeling I watched that, and both of them sort of failed a 2-up go for it at the end to score. I'm going to back Lachlan to win that. He's played, and I'm viewing that he's played enough orcs and or similar bashy teams at that point to have got his strategy right. And I think he'll nick that. But that could be close, and that could go into overtime quite easily. So then our predictions get even tougher because we've got the semi-final, which is again Thomas versus either Lachlan or Mike. But I would back Thomas to win against either of those teams. I think he's got a noticeable leg up in the muscle there.
Yeah, I can see that happening. He's got all of the actual damage potential just right there. No messing about.
And then finally, we have our best of 3 final, which would be me versus Thomas again. I could be playing Thomas, however it goes, sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games in a row potentially. And the same for Thomas as well, obviously. And even if one of us loses and has a break, it's only going to be 5 out of 6 games.
I kind of see it going to Thomas that way.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you've got a best of 3, A, things like injuries can pile up over that, and B, it means you can take your team specifically for that matchup with any levels up you get.
Yeah, but not only that, you've also got you can basically, if you're the Orc team, you just sack off game one and just go, I'm probably going to lose this. Let's just force as many hits and fouls as I can to cause injuries onto the elves to hurt them in their next game.
That is a fair tactic. And Thomas, if you're listening to this, don't do that. Equally, at the same time as the playoffs, we have what will be the division promotion relegation game. So first player in Division 2 and the bottom player in Division 1 will automatically swap over. There will also be a game. So second and third in Division 2 would play each other, which with our predictions would be James versus Gummer. I predicted Gummer has the slight advantage in this one thanks to Beast of Nurgle doing horrible things to gutter runners. I predicted that before. I'd predicted again in a playoff as well. And that would then play whoever we think would be fourth in Division 1 in a best of 3. And the winner of that match would end up being either remaining or getting promoted to Division 1. With the loser going to Division 2 or staying in Division 2. So that would be... I ended up going for Matt in fourth. Did you go for David in fourth or Matt? I can't recall.
I went for Matt in fourth.
So that would be humans versus Nurgle. And I think... So what happened last time? It was a 1-1 draw. Matt versus Gummer round 9. Yep. I think prior to that prediction, everyone was on the last podcast I was predicting that had Nurgle as favoured. I would agree with that, but Matt has a hell of a record in playoff games. So I would back him to I'd back him to stay up, which might end up in like 3 draws and draw in overtime or something to stay in Division 1. But yeah, what are your thoughts about that if you're playing Matt in 3 games in a row?
I might be all right. Because back in round 9, I also had almost no upgrades on my team.
That is a fair point. And you caused 4 mistakes games for Matt or something like that?
I think I caused like 2 or 3 to him, yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure how many I did. I did more to Lachlan than I did to Matt. That's for certain. But
yeah, missing next games in a back-to-back
is pretty
years. And might actually be one of the reasons why we haven't had a bashy a runny team win a best of 3.
They just don't grind very well. They can't last that many turns.
Yeah, that about covers our prediction. So we've got Thomas winning everything. Myself being the losing runner-up, Lachlan and Mike being the losing quarter-finalists. Matt staying in Division 1 for next season, with Gummer just falling short, but with a very much puncher's chance. James, Kate, and Tom Pope as the others remaining in Division 2. But yeah. Anything else from your side? Otherwise, we can look to wrap up there, I think.
No, that's all from me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Gummer.
That's all right. Thanks for having me on.
And hopefully next time we'll try and get Mike on. Almost had him on for this one, but couldn't quite arrange it. We just need to get Mike. Oh, we need to get Mike, James, and Kate on to finish up everyone having been on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we will end it there. Thanks for listening, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.